everyone. Thank you all for joining us today at our Demo Bytes session here at Ignite. My name is Kat Susch, and our session today is Meet Your Workers in the Field and Secure Your Endpoints in Today's Hybrid World. All of our speakers today are from the Microsoft Technology Centers all around the world. If you have interest in the Microsoft Technology Centers, check out microsoft.com/MTC. I will give you an introduction, first of all, to our session. We will also then walk you through the different hybrid work scenarios. We have some session takeaways, as well as a Q&A at the end. Our objectives today are to help you enable hybrid work anywhere with any device, and help you to understand how to support and secure your employees' devices for hybrid work. You will also learn about capabilities that are available to monitor and address security alerts. We all know that many organizations had to act quickly to support remote work when COVID-19 first arrived. Now that many organizations have already begun to return to the office and flexible work, employees can be working from anywhere with any device. However, there are still threats out there, so all these devices, applications, and data, and the corporate resources need to be protected wherever they are. With Microsoft's Zero Trust strategy, you can employ these new principles by ensuring every access request is strongly authenticated, authorized within policy constraints, and inspected for anomalies before granting access. Today, we are going to walk you through a few scenarios, including enabling and utilizing a corporate device with Alex, a personal device with Ajay, insight into the Security Operations Center with Ali, and the Realwear and Remote Assist with Al and Ali. Now I'll turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Kat. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Alex Shteynberg, and I'm coming to you today from an envisioning center in a Microsoft Technology Center in the New York location. I'm going to use a demo persona named Alexis, and Alexis just received a new device, a new Windows device that she ordered from a company store. This device can be anywhere. Pretend that I received this device at home. And if you've ever done a new Windows device startup, you probably know that it goes through a whole bunch of different questions that it's going to ask you the first time it starts. Well, when it's a corporate device, that device gets registered with the corporation's Azure AD tenant, and it can even be assigned to specific individuals. And I really get only one question. I get who you are and how do you log in. So as you can see on this screen, I just started this device a second ago, and it's asking me for my username, and it's asking me for a multi-factor authentication. We highly recommend multi-factor authentication for most customers because it reduces significant amount of security threats within an organization. In this case, I'm going to use, you probably don't see it, but I'm using my Android device with Authenticator app, and my chosen multi-factor authentication method is number matching. So I'm going to type that number in on my device. And that's all that I get asked for on this device. The device is now going to go ahead, join the Azure Active Directory of my employee. It's going to install all the applications and get all my data around. It's going to take about 20 to 30 minutes in my case. So what I will do for the demo purposes, and I'm going to jump into my time machine and jump ahead 30 minutes. Now I arrived 30 minutes into the future, And I have my completely built device. And this device includes all my data, which is synchronized through my OneDrive for Business. And it includes all my applications that I have requested from for my work. So the idea is to create a completely seamless end user experience that can transfer between any kind of device. And I can continue working under different conditions. And this particular scenario did not require me to have a VPN or anything else that is very complex for a lot of people to understand. So the idea is as seamless as possible. If you are a technical person, there are different ways to check the device compliance and also device policies that apply to it. So I can go to settings and accounts, and I can see that this device is joined to Azure Active Directory, and I can even drill in and see different policies that apply to this device compliance status, and so on and so forth. If you kind of want to go even a step further, there is a command line utility called dsred cmd, and it can do operations automation from the IT perspective for various either troubleshooting purposes or for various operations that occur. So this device is fully managed, fully compliant, which allows me to access anything that I am allowed and permitted to access in an organization. In this case, I'm accessing a SharePoint site that is labeled, if you noticed here, highly confidential managed devices only. This is going to be important for the next part of the demo that Ajay is going to do. On this site, I have a variety of resources, and I have files like the overview of Microsoft Technology Center that we sometimes talk to our customers. In my email, in my Outlook desktop application, Marla, which is the demo persona that Ajay is going to use, asking me for a particular file to be applied. So I'm going to reply to Marla, and I'm going to attach the file that you just saw earlier from that secured website to this email as a response. Notice that you have two options, share link or attach as a copy. A lot of our customers default to share link. This provides more advanced security and benefits to customers compared to the traditional attachments that we're used to in the past. This attachment lives within a managed environment. This attachment and anybody who can access this attachment will be audited, will be controlled, and if there's any kind of issues, we can control access and we can revoke access if we have to. So I'm going to send this to Marla based on the request. And over to you, Ajay, for the next part of the demo.
Thanks, Alex, and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. My name is Ajay Iyer, and as Kat said earlier, I'm also part of the MTC organization, but I'm based out of St. Louis. That said, I don't know if you can tell, I am actually in a hotel room. I was traveling for another conference that I'm speaking at, and this session is being done from a hotel room to actually, in a way, mimic my experience in this demo as somebody who is out in the field, outside of the office, outside of a home, right? And believe it or not, I'm actually using a personal hotspot because I have my own concerns in general of using any kind of public Wi-Fi. So there's that. So going back to the experience and what we're talking about in the context of being a field worker, right? And somebody who is out and about, what's that going to look like? So I'm going to share my screen here. And part of what I'm sharing is essentially it's a personal device, as you all can see. And to validate, in fact, that this is a personal iPad that I'm using, if you look at under here, under device management, it is not managed by any organization, which makes sense. It's a personal device. That said, I do have access to Outlook over here, and I can access all my emails. I also have my personal email here with my live account. So I've got that going, a standard traditional personal device. So to that effect, taking the baton from Alex in the context of how do I actually, as Marla, access this PowerPoint presentation that he just shared? So before I click on that, I want to show you something real quick. Is this device, even though it's a personal device, I still have access to SharePoint, right? Because we look at it in a traditional zero trust model, um, where we have the 6 pillars, identity, devices, data, apps, and things like that. From a data perspective, we look at it in the context of there's sensitive data, right? Financial data, PII, HIPAA, things like that. And then there's also the less sensitive data, right? So from that perspective, this SharePoint site traditionally is a standard team site with some very less sensitive data, which is why I'm still able to get to things over here, no problem, from a personal device. Where it gets interesting is going back to the email from Alex and accessing this PowerPoint, right? So when I click on this, what's going to happen in just a second is it's going to throw me a slightly varied version of an access denied message. The page should load. There it is. And it's not just standard access denied in the context of I don't have any SharePoint permissions. I do. Alexis has shared this with me, right? And she set the permissions on it to be such that anybody within the organization can edit this file. However, this file is actually also being classified using Microsoft Information Protection using a sensitivity label that is enforcing me to access this only from a managed device. So what you can see here is, due to organizational policies, I can't access this resource from an untrusted device, which is the point that's being made, is we want to enable accessing org data from anywhere, from any device. However, there's always this InfoSec overlay that needs to exist. We need to protect our information while enabling our employees to be productive. And so to that effect, in the scenario, me being in a hotel room with my personal device because I left my work device in the office, that's the experience, and that's how it should be, right? You should be able to work, but when the data is of a sensitive nature, I'm sorry, you just can't, right? And it's got to be dynamic, it's got to be real time, and that's the point that's being made over here. Another example, and this is in groundbreaking technology in the sense that it's not brand new or something like that. These are just core principles that have been in the platform that really, in today's world, especially to Kat's point from earlier, in this post-COVID world, or in the, this lockdown period that we were in, and now we are all working in this mixed environment, this hybrid environment, you have to be prepared for those scenarios, right? So here's another example of some possible exfiltration, if you will, that I may try here. So going back to the email here, so clearly I can't access this PowerPoint. Well, I'm going to see, can I poke some holes and see what else can they allow me to do, right, from a personal device? So maybe someone can share with me the text of this PowerPoint. Well, I don't know. Let me see if that even works. So what I'm going to do here is just to test it out, copy something, right? And let me go to my personal, mailbox over here. And I'm going to send it to myself, right, as a way of potential exfiltration, but let me hit paste. Well, sorry, that doesn't work either. Organization's data cannot be pasted here, and that isn't new. This is app protection policies, right, within Intune. But the thing here is that it's not meant to be all about just flashy new toys. It's about taking different technologies, putting it all together to ultimately solve the problem of how do I keep my data safe while enabling BYOD, right? So that's essentially a nutshell of my demo in this case, right? But what I'd like to do next is actually hand over the reins to Ali, who is going to essentially get into what does this look on the back end, all these activities that I've taken, right? What does it look like from a SOC perspective? So Ali, over to you.
Thank you very much, AJ. Hi, everyone. My name's Alison Turnbull. I'm a technical architect in the London office. So let's dig a little bit deeper into why AJ wasn't able to log in from his mobile device. As you can see, I'm in the Azure portal. So I'm looking at the sign-in logs within conditional access. So I'm down here from a monitoring perspective, and I'm in these sign-on logs. But I can almost hear all of you at the moment thinking, well, hang on a second. I'm in the sign-in logs. Why isn't she in Microsoft Sentinel? Why aren't you in Defender? Yes.
Sorry, Ali, can you share your screen? Your screen isn't showing.
Okay, hang on.
It's not for me.
It was showing.
Oh, was it? Oh, was it just me? Apologies. I can see it now.
Is that all okay?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So I can hear you all say, why are I using Microsoft Sentinel or Defender here to kind of go through these logs? Well, actually, as you know, an incident is a collection of correlated alerts and associated data that make up the story of an attack. In this case, we're not investigating an attack, so we can just use the conditional access sign-in logs to investigate what's actually gone on with Marla. However, if this was related to a real incident, these logs and alerts would actually be automatically included as part of that attack story, and we would actually be able to see them in the incident details. So I'll pop back over here to conditional access. What I've done here is I've actually popped the filter on. So I've got the username contains Marla W. So we're just looking for this one particular user because this is quite a busy tenant and we didn't want to bring everything up. So I can actually see here a list of all of the times that Marla's actually accessed within the last 24 hours. And we can see here that this is the name of the user, Marla. We can see what time she came in. And so this is the time of what it is where AJ is. And he's actually located in Belton, Missouri today. We can see the IP address that he's coming from, and we can see the conditional access rules, and we can see what type of authentication he actually had when he came in. So if I drill in a little bit more to get a little bit more information, we've got quite a lot of tabs and quite a lot of information to discover what was actually going on. So what it actually tells us here is that this is not an error. So we saw that the status was interrupted, but that this was triggered due to device authentication. So the conditional access policy, or the application and the resource we were actually trying to connect to, was actually triggered. So again, as I mentioned, I can see the name of the user, I can see the username, and I can see the application that we are trying to get to. So this is Microsoft 365 SharePoint Online. As I mentioned before, we could see the IP address and the location we're coming from. So if we wanted to put different conditional access policies based on different locations or based on even looking down to the GPS location, so not even just an IP address, we're actually able to lock it down from that side of things as well. But most importantly, I can see the device information. So we can work out why AJ triggered that particular policy. So here I can see that he was coming from an Edge browser. I can see the iOS of the device he was coming from, or it's iOS 15. But most importantly, I can see that his device was not compliant and it is not managed, which is why the policy was actually triggered. If I pop over to conditional access, I can see a list of all the conditional access policies I have inside my organization, but I can see that actually only 2 were successful. So if I look at the first one, let's see if we can work out what actually was in the policy that was blocking AJ. So I can see this gives me a list of the results. So it tells me every single thing within the policy that was actually matched. So first of all, we know that Marla, she was matched. We can see the application, so SharePoint Online. I can see that he was coming from a browser, so that was actually matched as part of the policy. And I can actually see that there was a session control that was actually user app enforced restrictions were applied. So we can see that actually the policy, we can see and be able to trace back exactly what was actually going on. But if I want to look into the policy in a little bit more detail of what was actually set up, I can easily go straight to it from here. I don't need to navigate anywhere else. I can have a look exactly at the policy that was actually created. So in here, we can see the user. So I can see that what was included was a group of users in one particular group, and Marla is a member of this particular group. If I wanted to put different types of policies here, I could. We've got the ability to integrate any application that you have from that is integrated within Azure AD Enterprise applications. So we can choose SharePoint, we can choose an application that you might have on premise if we configure that with Azure App Proxy, or we can configure any cloud app. So if you configure something like Workday for HR or Salesforce or any other application, you've got the ability to do that too. I can see the condition that was actually triggered. So in here, we can see the app. So it was a browser. So we got modern authentication clients was actually in there. And I can actually see the session. So we can see in here that we're using app forced restrictions. So we've got the ability to be able to really drill into that. So that shows you everything from a conditional access perspective. But as AJ mentioned, we've actually created this particular rule as part of an information protection policy. So right now I'm in the Microsoft Purview portal. So this is compliance.microsoft.com. And inside these protection labels that we've configured, we've got a highly confidential. So the SharePoint site that AJ was at is highly confidential. And we can see here that we've got a particular label that we've created for managed devices only. If I click on this, I've got the ability to be able to show you where we actually set this particular rule up. So it should come up here in a second while it's actually loading. It's typical from a demo perspective, and I'll be able to edit this label. So this is a sensitivity label that I've configured, but I can use sensitivity labels to use all sorts of different types of things. So what we've done is we've defined the scope for the label. We've configured it for a group or site, i.e. we could use it to protect teams, groups, or a SharePoint site. And in this case, it's been a SharePoint site. I could use it to encrypt or mark items. But what I'm actually really looking for is actually the ability to see where we configured that conditional access setting. So here we can see I want to configure external sharing and conditional access settings, and that would allow us to protect labeled SharePoint sites. So in here, I can see the conditional access rule that we've configured. So this allows us to control the level of access from an unmanaged device and enforce those restrictions. So what we've done here is we want to determine when users log on from an unmanaged device into SharePoint, so ones that aren't hybrid Azure AD joined, and we want to actually be able to block that access. So that's what we've actually configured. That's what created the conditional access policy back in Azure AD. So it's everything's all kind of connected together as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a feel from a policy perspective. I'm now going to pass over to Al, who is going to take you through another managed device that we actually have inside our organization. Over to you, Al.
Thanks, Ali. Let's see whether my camera's coming back on. Okay, so I'm actually a field worker at the moment, and I'm actually in a hotel. So like AJ, but not in the same hotel physically. But for this scenario, we're going to imagine that actually Ajay has called out to facilities and said, actually, there's an issue with his tap. So what do we have there? We have a way for me as somebody who is going to fix that tap to actually go and investigate that tap and maybe get some support. So we often think of Microsoft Teams as being something that we can use on our mobile devices, on our tablets, like Ajay was doing, on our laptops. And we often think of Teams as being, it's got the capability of actually having us on camera so that we can see each other. And that's a very important element of us interacting as humans. But there's another scenario where actually maybe I want to actually show somebody what I'm seeing, and I'm not so interested in them seeing me, but actually understanding that they can see what I'm seeing. So in this scenario, I've got a headset on. I've got a Realwear headset on, and this basically is strapped to my head. It can be attached to a hard hat, and it's got speakers over the ears, so I can hear whoever's actually speaking. It's got a mic, so it will pick up on what I'm saying. And it's got this little boom arm coming down here where it actually has a tiny little screen in there. And what I'm sharing on my screen is exactly what I can see in this tiny little screen. So, you might see me kind of closing my eye and squinting a little bit just to make sure that it's visible for me. But this is really to allow me to interact in a hands-free way with somebody who is not in the same location as me. So the way this works, it's all voice activated. So I have to kind of pause a little bit before I say a command and then pause afterwards so that it doesn't expect, it's not going to look for content within a sentence. So if I carry on speaking at normal speed, it's not going to pick up on anything. But if I say my programs, then it will pop up a little prompt on the screen to say that it's recognized a particular phrase.
Hey, Al, I'm sorry, somebody in the chat saying that they can't see the screen. Do you mind resharing?
Yeah, sure. Let me just reshare the screen. Hopefully you can see the screen now.
Yep.
Excellent. So what we're seeing is essentially what I'm seeing in this tiny little lens, and the reason it's moving is because I navigate by moving my head. So I can move around, and it tells me what I can see based on where my head is pointing. So we see the different apps that are installed here, and we see the numbers above them, and that allows me to use a way of selecting each app by using the numbers. And we'll see that as we go through other interfaces, that ability to select an item in those based on the number. I'll navigate back, navigate home, my programs. I didn't leave enough space when I said that that magic phrase. So I can use the numbers, or I can use the names of the apps. So here, when we look at the apps that are here, one of the key ones that we need to point out here is Company Portal. So navigate home, my programs. So that item there that I'm not going to say again because it's doing an Alexa on me every time, is there so that we've got the security around this device. This device shows up as a Android device, so it's running on Android, so you can manage it. It's there exactly as you would expect a mobile device, and we've got that item there so that we can actually authenticate and we can secure this this content. So once that's installed, we've then got Teams. So Teams is installed. So we've got a version of Teams on this device that's really geared around the capabilities that we can use when we are hands-free here. So when we think about what we can do, we're not going to be looking at entering a lot of text. We're not going to be looking at reading big documents. We're really looking at communication. So if you can see at the bottom there, we've got 3 different options, which really indicate exactly how we can communicate. So if I say my chats, I can see in here that I've got different options. And again, we see those numbers popping up. So I can see channels in there, because one of the key things that we want to be able to see is conversations that are taking place in channels. And if I say select item 7, page down, select item 7, page down. Okay, that's playing nicely for me. That should give me a list of the chats that I've got, so I can chat with people as well. So if I say maybe I want to actually do something and I want to share a conversation and show somebody something, my calls. So in this scenario, I'm going to use Ali as our world-renowned expert on taps. So as well as being a security expert, she knows about taps. And I'm in a hotel room, I'm trying to fix a tap. So maybe I've tried what I know, but I actually need some support from somebody else who isn't actually physically here. So I'm going to call Ali. So select item 3. So this is calling Ali. And what it will do is it will share the video. So you can see we've got video. So my headset has the camera on the side here, so I can move that up and down if I need to. So this means that I can actually get up and I can move around, and Ali is actually seeing what I see. So maybe I want to take a picture of this particular tab. So open the chat, take photo, take photo. Send message. So what I've actually done there is I've actually taken the photo, I've put it into the message, and I've sent it to Ali. So if I now want to return to the call, select item 1. Select item 1. Then I can come back and Ali will be able to see it. She can now see the video as well. So it's now sharing that video again. So I can have that conversation with Ali because Ali can hear me. So she can speak to me. I can hear her. She can see exactly what I'm seeing. So if I need her help to actually fix that tap, she can direct me and say, go fix that particular area over there. Or we might be looking for a manual. So, Ali, do you have anything that can help me to actually fix this tap? So Ali has shared a diagram that looks exactly like what I need. Can you just scroll down a little bit, Ali?
I can indeed. 1 second. There we go.
Excellent.
So,
Oh, that part down at the bottom, that looks like the issue. Excellent. Okay, so I think I know how to fix that tap now. Excellent. Thank you, Ali. So share video. So again, we're back to sharing the video. So this really demonstrates exactly how we can use a secured device using voice commands, allow somebody who's out in the field who maybe needs help doing something that they need both their hands to do, but they can communicate using Teams. They can communicate back to the people who actually know wherever they are. So Ali could be helping support many different people who are doing the same job and needs her support. She can share the content with them, so she can put those images in. I can share using the chat, so I can actually chat with her there. We can use voice commands to control the whole application here. So if you're wondering what that looks like from the other side, so from the perspective of Ali, maybe Ali, you could share your screen and show me what you can see. So there you can see exactly what Ali's seeing. So again, it's not me showing my face so that I'm present. It's really getting support from somebody else and showing them what I can see. And when we take this concept of, me as a field worker, that's one aspect of it. So I can do this hands free. I can do this, attach it to a hard hat if I need to. But we could also take this a step further and maybe, put a camera into a drone and take remote pictures and remote video. A drone could be going, it could be flying. It could be a remote control car going down a pipe, for example, going somewhere where we can't actually go. We can get that information into Teams so that we can collectively review that and view that video within a Teams meeting. So it's just to try and illustrate that, Teams meetings aren't just for us to see each other. Actually, they can be for us to share content from other locations which are maybe less accessible to the majority of us. So with that, I will hand back to Kat to wrap up for us.
Thank you, Al. So thank you for listening to our scenarios, but let's just do a quick recap. We started with Alex, who walked us through corporate device. Now, he leveraged Intune for setting up that device, Autopilot specifically. Next was Ajay, setting up his personal device, accessing information that he needed to get to. However, that information was protected using Microsoft Information Protection, specifically a label that was applied to that particular content that had restrictions on it. Then Ali gave us some insight into the conditional access portal under Azure Active Directory, helping us to walk through the different types of ways in which you might analyze some alerts or capabilities within the platform that you were alerted by. Then getting some real insight from how you see something or can leverage other devices that are not necessarily compute devices that you have for mobile or for desktops, but also for those that are wearable, including this Realwear example, and how to leverage that in conversation and collaboration using Microsoft Teams. With that, I'm going to open it up now for Q&A. If you would like, if you have a question, firstly, you can drop the question either in the chat, or if you would like to use the raise hand function, we will select the first people as they come in. So we welcome your questions. All right, Jay.
Sorry, Kat. So I'm sure others have questions too, but I wanted to share something, a question that I often hear in a demo like this for customers. And the question I get is, so we talk about working from anywhere, from any device. And then there's the aspect of Intune for device management. Having a personal device and knowing what, if I were to enroll it into Intune, what is IT at that point? What are the things that they can and cannot see on a device, on a personal device that is getting enrolled? That is a question I get a lot. And I was wondering if we can share that information with this team, because I know that comes up very often, at least as a concern from a privacy perspective.
Okay.
So I think there's a slide that covers that.
Yep. Sorry.
No worries.
There is a, while Kat is pulling it up, there is a question in the chat about Realwear device, whether it can be used with other applications.
Yes,
Yep.
Al.
And so yes, Javier, the Realwear device, because it's an Android device, you can basically load on any application that you want that it will support. Obviously, because of the interface, the nature of the interface, there are potentially some restrictions in terms of how you would work using just those voice commands. But as you saw with using Teams, there are ways that the interface works in order to use the numbers and to use that select item mechanism for actually choosing different items that are presented as part of that interface. But yes, there's a wide range of applications that are developed for the Realwear device and for other wearable headsets as well that work in similar ways.
So another question is, why for an iOS device enrolled as a personal from Intune, there is the possibility to wipe it, and this function works and shouldn't start the wipe for a BYOD device? Ajay, you want to take that?
Absolutely, Kat. So that's a good question. And when we say wipe it, and I think there's some clarity needed on that term, because on a personal device, right, that is enrolled, obviously as a personal device, the wipe implies a selective wipe in the sense that it is wiping org data from that personal device, right? It's not wiping everything, meaning the intent isn't to say, oh, I have pictures, I have text messages and data and other applications, right? The wipe it function is treated more as a selective wipe for org data only, right? So that's the question. I mean, that's the answer to your question, Daniel. I'm not sure if I fully answered it or if she was looking for more clarity. Unfortunately, is wiping everything.
Yeah, there's two methodologies of enrolling, right, AJ? There is application enrollment, which is what you're describing in terms of wiping just the corporate data store. And then there's a full device enrollment, the device management, which gives IT organization full control. So that's a debate for a lot of customers as to, for BYOD devices, which method are they using and how much control they're going to have over the device. On Android devices, if you're familiar with those, you have the separation of profiles. So it's a little bit more clear. On an iOS devices, you don't have that separation, at least not in the current version. So it's either my application management and wipe the application portion, or you have to reset the device. We follow whatever the operating system controls we have. We don't invent our own. So whatever Apple provides us APIs for, that's what we use. Whatever Google provides us API for, that's what we use. So there are some constraints as to what we can play with.
Exactly, and I would say this for what it's worth. I think, Daniel, when you say that, why is it, I mean, if it's treated as a BYOD device, then the thing here is it shouldn't get enrolled, right? What it's basically should be doing is I'm just accessing org data. I'm just registering the device. I'm not enrolling it, right? Enrollment also implies I'm getting the management profile on my device and things like that, which is what triggers the full wipe. So, but in the case of my iPad, right, that if you go to device management in settings, it's not, there is no management profile, which means on a device like this, which is treated as a pure BYOD, in that scenario, it's a selective wipe at all points of time. So, or at least that's how it should be. So, but the devil's in the details, and maybe there's some configuration mismatch potentially that's triggering something that you see.
Ajay, did you want to comment on the privacy?
Oh, thank you. I did. So this slide is basically captured from a real device, right? And it's basically getting into, if any of you have enrolled devices in the past, through the company portal, right? You'll see these screens. Some folks I see they just skip past it, right? But it's a pretty important one for those who get concerned with privacy on what can and cannot be seen. So from even on an enrolled device that's fully managed, right? At any given point, IT and Microsoft is only able to see the model of the device, the serial number, and the operating system, right? And the device name gets used as a way to identify the device and associate it with the enrolled user, right? But if you see in the can't section on the right, browsing history, nope, right? Personal emails, documents. In fact, if you recall from my demo, I'm still using the same Outlook app, but using multiple mailboxes. But even in that scenario, it is only able to ever get visibility into the Outlook side of things. And what application protection policies do is they create a container that it's like a logical container that says this is the only boundary I look at is any app data associated with your organizational identity, which in this case is Azure AD. So a live account mailbox is not, and hence it's outside the purview of what this can see, right? So access to any passwords, photos, text messages, nope, right? To the point where we can enforce a policy that requires a PIN, but we can't set the PIN on behalf of the employee because there's a privacy aspect to it as well, right? There's an element of trust that needs to exist between that employee and the organization and Microsoft. So just want to spend a couple of minutes on that. But thank you.
Are there any other questions? Please feel free to come off mute if you have a question.
From Eric, for conditional access, what is the best way to block everything and then only allow specific apps? Who wants to take this one?
Yeah, I get this question a lot from regulated customers. The default is block everything. Probably a long discussion, and we spent hours with customers on designing this. I know there's an article in the works on how to do that, and be careful, because if you default to block everything, there are some essential services that you're going to start blocking. So for example, and it really depends on what you're using within an organization. One common one that I see in these types of scenarios, if you block everything by default, things like sharing protected files or protected messages with external recipients will stop working. Or if you're blocking outside access altogether, even your employees will stop being able to do particular operations, like block the Microsoft information protection. So there is an article in works, and we'll have to, I guess, add to the notes on this session on what are the essential things you don't want to block to make sure. It's not an exhaustive list, because it's really hard to create an exhaustive list that is specific to particular operations. But I would say be careful about this, because you have to analyze everything that is being used, and then what impact of block everything does it have on it. MIP being one of the common ones that I see all the time. So I don't have a perfect answer for you, because it depends on what is used within an organization and what patterns are being used. A lot of customers that come to the Microsoft Technology Center, that's what we analyze and discuss with customers. What is the pattern that you want to do with external people? What is the pattern that you want to do with trusted partner organizations? What is the pattern that you want to do for your employees? And then that determines the impact of that kind of policy. I don't know if anybody wants to add other comments, but that's a very, very common regulated industries question.
All right. Any other questions? If not, I want to thank you all for joining us today. There is a link in the chat with a survey. We'd appreciate if you would fill that out. And we want to wish you all very well. Enjoy the rest of Ignite.